Welcome to Fostering Blooms, the podcast where we dig deep into gardening and all the ways it can enrich your home and life.
Together, we'll explore every aspect of gardening the organic way, keeping it simple, accessible, and fun.
Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just getting your hands in the dirt, we're here to share the tips and insights you need to grow something truly special. I'm Shannon Foster-Boleen.
And I'm Caitlyn Blum, and we're two friends on a mission to cultivate beauty, creativity, and connection through everything we grow.
This is Fostering Blooms. Today, we're going to talk about soil blocking.
You're poised on your seat. You're ready.
I am poised, which means I'm probably going to be too close to the mic, but we'll see what happens.
No, it's okay. It's perfect. This device in front of us.
Yes. So I would encourage you to watch this on video if you have a chance so you can see some of these things. But if not, I have a soil blocker in front of me. I really love soil blocking. I just started doing it last year. And this soil blocker, basically it's a metal device. I had it clean and then I've been using it. As you can see, it's dirty. But it is made in America. Swift Blocker is the name of the company that makes these. And you can see it's got these little square grids below. And then it has a top piece with little bumps on it. And what you do is you put the soil in the grid area and then you push this top piece down, then you push down and you lift up and pull it up, and you've got these blocks of soil on this tray below. I am going to have a video on Instagram that you can watch as well. Soil blocking, the reason that it's so fantastic is that when you make these blocks, you can get different size. This is a smaller, like 3/4 inch, and you can just put the seed right onto that block and you don't have to use any plastic, anything to hold it. It's literally self-contained. Your face has lots of questions.
It has so many questions.
Let's go. Let's start.
I've not done soil blocking before, so I'm really interested in learning. I always do the seed trays or direct sow. This will be a newer thing for me, and I'm excited about it. I don't even know where to start. You actually have a soil blocker. I have also seen people use a flat, like paint scraper that used to scrape paint off to make the actual blocks. The benefit of doing this over a handheld tool to make them your own.
So much easier. I'm going to talk about what goes into the soil mixture, but you have this top portion off. You just load the soil into it, firm it down, make sure it's level, and then you put this on top and pull it off, and it's already cut. The little blocks are pre-cut for you. It's going to be more even. It's going to have the same amount of soil in each square. I think it's a lot easier than trying to create. I don't even know what they're putting the thing in that they're hand cutting. So the one thing about soil blocking that is also great is it takes up a lot less space. You can see that this tray is basically from the tip of my index finger to not even the base of my palm. So maybe, what is that? 8 inches?
Yeah.
6 inches?
Yeah.
7 inches?
6
to 8 inches.
That takes up so much less space than our big 72 cell trays.
Right, absolutely. Like I said in one of the other episodes we've done, is there's certain seeds that I find do really well in this, and also seeds that normally you would start outside, like carrots and beets and onions, that you can start in this. Radishes do great in here. They germinate super fast, so be ready to get them outside, but you're not wasting seeds.
Yeah. You're not having to thin your seedlings, which is hard for me.
And you know how with a lot of regular sowing trays, like cells, you usually sow 2 to a cell. This one you really just sow 1. I can do a whole tray. I could make this whole tray, let's say snapdragons, if I wanted to, but usually I do mixed trays. You'll see on the front of the tray I have blue painter's tape. It's super fancy, and it just says 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You know, I'm going down the line every 3 cells and labeling that. And then I start a Google spreadsheet, and it says tray 1. I've got like a label on the front, tray 1, row 1, stonehead cabbage. And then I've got row 2 is stonehead cabbage, because I think, well, if I sow 10 and the germination rate's 80%, then I'll probably get 8 of them to come out. Maybe there's something that happens, so maybe 6. Kind of hedge my bets, right?
Okay.
So number that. Keep a Google spreadsheet on there so that you know what's in your rows. I also suggest, if you're not planting a whole tray of the same plant, then plant stuff that would germinate around the same rate, which is one of the reasons I track how quickly things germinate. I made that mistake early on. You don't want to have it germinate in 2 days and then the rest of the tray is going to take a week.
Yeah.
You know, or 2 weeks or whatever. So that's just a tip.
That's great. My other question is these trays.
I actually got both of these at the same place, Gardener's Workshop. Swift Blocker has a few places they sell through, and she is one of them, and she also sells these trays.
Awesome.
She also sells something else that I'll mention when we talk about soil, which is what's up next, if you're ready.
I am ready to hear about what mixture of soil, because I think this is an important part. We're not just using potting mix, are we?
No.
Okay, what are we using?
I am really trying to eliminate peat moss from my garden.
Why?
It is horrible for the environment. These peat bogs take like thousands and thousands of years to form. And we don't talk about it as much in the States, but I hear them talk about it a lot in the UK because they're depleting their natural resources of these peat bogs, which are really important. The short version is how they interact with the atmosphere kind of keeps everything in check, right?
Filtration too,
yeah,
of
right.
the
CO2
substances that
and
go
all
through it and then in the environment.
Yeah. So, you know, here, sadly, you can still go buy huge bales of peat moss. And every time I see it now, I cringe because I've done that before and I didn't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. So I am really trying to use cocoa coir based potting mixes and potting soil, although I'm still working through some potting soil right now that has peat in it. But this is a great way to start very simply. You get cocoa coir blocks and soak them in water. Then it's going to be a mixture of 16 cups of cocoa coir with 4 cups of compost sifted. Like a good cow manure would work. I've done mushroom compost, but it tends to be a little chippy, you know? Mm-hmm. Gardener's Workshop, she sells a mixture of green sand and rock phosphate. You can buy a bag of that and it's just like half a cup. I'm going to make my own mixture this year. I found Down to Earth is a company that I really love for their fertilizers, and they have both the rock phosphate and the green sand. So I'm going to create my own mixture. Okay. It'll be over the long haul, it'll be more cost affordable for me because I do a lot of these. But if you're just starting out and playing with it, I would get hers and just start there, mix it all up with water, and it should feel like the wetness of a bowl of oatmeal.
Okay. Which is a little bit more wet than I would think, but it needs to be saturated.
Kind of pretty. If I squeeze it, it's definitely got some water, and I might get one drip, but it's not like drip, 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 drip when I squeeze the mixture. And you'll see, like, if you don't get it wet enough, when you go and put the soil in this block and you lift it up, they'll fall apart.
Sure. They're not going to hold.
Right. You want to have a good moisture, because that is one thing about these, and we'll talk about in a second, is watering. I have a really long Dutch trowel I use to mix it with and get everything mixed really well. And then you're going to go ahead and put in the soil blocker, do the blocks, and then you're going to seed it.
Okay. So that's great.
With this seeding, you also want to buy this little device.
What about my questions? I have so many.
Tell me. Tell me your questions.
I have so many. Okay, when you're buying your supplies, I'm new to this. Let's say I'm getting my supplies. To me, it doesn't seem like it takes a lot of soil. So when you're saying 16 cups of this, 4 cups of that, a dash of this, a pinch of this, how much, like, you know, getting started, what should I buy? A big bag of...
You're so smart. That's such an obvious question. I just went right over it.
It's okay. Like, how much do I start with? Like,
so
what do I get?
You're going to get 3 blocks of cocoa coir, and 1 block will get you at least 16 cups. Okay. A bag of cow manure. You get some of the smaller sizes. I mean, you will never use a whole bag of cow manure unless you make like 100 trays. You don't need that much. I mean, it's only 4 cups. So the green sand, I think if you get the 32-ounce bag, that lasted me all of last year, and I probably made 20 trays at least.
That's great.
Yeah. So what I would say is, when I just discussed that soil mix that I just made up, I made 4 trays already with that one mixture. Okay. And I'm probably got enough for 3 more.
That's great.
That one mixture, and you think about it, this has 5 cells wide and 15 cells long. So that's about 60 plants in 1 tray. And let's say I do 5, that's about 300 plants. And this, again, this is the smaller size, but I got the smaller size because Lisa from Gardener's Workshop said she takes them, plops them right out into the garden right from this size. Wow, that's for a lot of her cold hardy plants. She does that. I have done that with some of these, and some of them I potted on depending on what it was. Again, I have a list of things that I think grow best in here to start with, and then you can either pot them on or put them out directly into the garden. I do vegetables and I do flowers out of these. The only thing I ever really had tank really badly was peppers and tomatoes, and I think it's because I couldn't keep these humid enough. I might run an experiment where I cover them with a humidity dome.
You could dome them. Yeah, see what happens. We're going to see what happens.
Yes, we're going to see what happens.
That's great. Okay, no, that's a good baseline to start off with. So seeding, what is this crafty little device you have?
So this little device is amazing, especially if you have eyesight issues. What it does is it rests on top of your blocks, just like this. I know if you're listening, you can't see it, but it's silver and it's got little holes in it, has a little handle. You pour your seeds right here.
Okay.
Like almost like how pharmacists have like the measuring tools, like they pour out the pills and then they push them into the bottle. So you pour your seeds into here. The one thing about seeds is ideally we're not touching them a lot because the moisture from our hands will help them. They'll go bad faster. So you just push them in and you just pull the seed over, put it into a hole. It's like a little game. Boop, boop, boop. Pull it over, pull it over, pull it over. And these little holes should line up directly with the little indentations that top piece pushed into the soil. I love it because you're not wasting seeds. It goes right in there. Then when you're done, because I usually pour extra seeds, you just go whoop like this. They're going to roll off of this piece into that envelope or however you have it contained. So that is indispensable. And then I cover them with vermiculite if it's a seed that needs to be covered. Typically, most of what I'm sowing in here does need to be covered, but there are some seeds that need light to germinate, and you just leave them on top of the block without any vermiculite on it. And I've started just from the get-go this year putting them under the grow lights, and I'm going to see if that helps keep my seedlings a little stockier. But I tell you, they germinate so quickly in this. I mean, I'm already looking at cabbage right here that are coming up already. Do you have questions about seeding?
It's interesting, you know, when you look at your seed packet and this is 1/4 of an inch of depth that you need to plant your seed. Are you able to get that with the vermiculite on here, that 1/4 inch? You know, you just do it a little bit, you know, thicker on one side or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're in the cells, you dig a little hole and then you cover it back up. But this is different. I think it's a little bit more delicate. You have these squares, so you want to accommodate that.
I will tell you this. The bigger seeds that I plant usually are things like beets, marigolds, zinnias. So the beets, I just kind of tap them down a little further into the block, gently, very gently, because you don't want it to bust open, and then just vermiculate them a little heavier, and they're totally fine.
Perfect.
Everything else, like honestly, it's usually such a shallow depth, like 1/4 of an inch. Like who's measuring that even in a regular cell block?
I'm not.
Right. Then with other seeds that are a little bigger, like I did, believe it or not, I did dahlia seeds in the soil block, and they came up. They came up.
Wow.
But I think this year I'm just going to go ahead and do the dahlias and the zinnias in 72 cells
72s.
because I know that they'll come up and I can leave them and I won't have to transplant them. The other thing I've learned is, see how I kind of pulled these apart? I took this tool, sliced in the middle of one block and gently pushed it this way. When you're watering, I pick it up and I put the water on this and then tilt it down. It'll run down both sides. But this middle section kept staying really dry. So by opening it up here, then I can get some water in there and tilt it, water from here and tilt it. See how these little center blocks, you can tell they're a little dried out. I do a lot of top misting.
Okay.
The one thing that's a little more high maintenance with these is, unlike a 72 or a 98, those other type of sowing cells, they tend to hold water a lot longer. You can put it in the bottom of the tray, you're done. These guys, I water every morning, I spritz every morning, and then I spritz again at night just to make sure, because those grow lights can really dry them out, and these have to stay at least sponge level moist.
Sure, not dried out because they are exposed. So I mean,
Very
I think
much
the
so.
humidity dome, like you talked about, would be interesting to see how they do. You can access the sides and the top, unlike when they're in seed trays. They are surrounded by something, so it keeps moisture in. But so that makes sense. Needed to water them a little bit more, and creating your little your little well there.
I know. And essentially it air prunes the roots. Any roots that would try to come out the side, they're already air pruned. And you get less root disturbance. The biggest thing is the moisture piece of it. I'm running an experiment right now with some carnation seeds. I did do those last year in here, but I'm doing 2 rows of 2 different kinds on a soil block, and then 2 rows of 2 different kinds in some 72s.
Ooh.
And I'm going to see what comes up first and what
When did
does
you start
best.
those?
I'm still waiting to see what's going to pop up.
Yeah,
So it's
I
just a
wanted
couple
an
days.
answer right now.
I know.
What happened? Which
I know.
did better?
You got to stick with us. I do put a lot of these experiments on Instagram, and so does Caitlyn. Always check out our Instagram because a lot of these things we talk about, we try to put videos on there too.
We're learning.
We
too.
are, yeah. I get usually a really high success rate with these, and I would encourage you to give it a go. Yeah. Those are my soil blocking tips, and we'll put some things in the show notes. I think one thing that's fun about this is doing the mixing because you get your hands all dirty. So you kind of feel like you're out in the garden even in January or February when you're sowing seed.
Absolutely. This is a great base to start with, so I'm really excited to try it. /help you / you're
Yes.
doing our starts. So bad.
Oh, I love it.
But this is obtainable. That was great. Thanks, Shannon.
Awesome. You're welcome. Well, so now let's go get dirty.
All right, let's go grow, baby, in our soil blocks.
We love hearing from our listeners. Have a question, tip, or story to share? Send it our way at tips@fosteringblooms.com, and we may feature it in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed today's episode of Fostering Blooms, please remember to follow and rate the podcast. Your support helps us reach more gardeners and bloom enthusiasts like you.